Yeah, welcome to the Dental Late Night Show breakout session. And we are very happy to have our special guest, Keith Drayer, with us. Hello, Keith. How are you today?
Hey, Christian. I'm great. Thank you for having me. Welcome to the United States. I'm glad we are filming right here in Battery Park, Manhattan, the tip of Manhattan, overlooking the beautiful Statue of Liberty, which is a beacon of hope for everybody.
Yeah. Why did you suggest us, especially the Battery Park filming, to make the take with you in New York?
I think it's a very meaningful place. Obviously, you and your team came in from Germany. Sure, you're coming in for some tennis as well, which we'll talk about that. And the awesome 22 members of Germany that are playing in the US Open. But the Statue of Liberty is the beacon of hope, of welcome. And the world needs a lot of help now and healing. And hopefully the Statue of Liberty will give us that reminder.
Yeah. Okay, I think it's when you come into the park, and when we came in here this morning, it was so full of fresh air, the green fields, the people who are walking around with their dogs. So much energy, so much feeling here. So you feel catch up when you go to the park. I've been here the first time in the Battery Park, but I think it's wonderful. It's a great place to talk with you about you and about your job. So I would like to start with, can you please explain who are you, where are you from, what are you doing here with Henry Schein?
Sure. Thank you again. So my name is Keith Drayer. I'm the Vice President and General Manager of Henry Schein's global dental practice transition business. So we help, currently we're in about 7 countries. We help practitioners with their ownership goals. We help professionals sell their practice at the end of their career. We help emerging groups acquire practices. We help young people out of dental school who've maybe been an associate at one place, want to acquire a practice and reap the benefits of ownership themselves. So I've been with Henry Schein for 26 years. And I did have part of my career before that. And in my time as a student, you may not believe this, but when I was 19 years old, I was a student in England on an exchange program. And then when we were traveling on a Euro pass, a 2-month Euro pass, it was the greatest thing. I ended up for a day in East Germany. Okay. When that existed, before the wall was torn down. And it's funny because on the news yesterday, you probably saw Gorbachev passed away, and he and Reagan were so instrumental in taking down that wall.
Yeah, it's so interesting that you've been even in those student days back to Germany. So what did you study? So did you study business, or did you study like law, or what did you do?
It was a international finance program, based in the UK, but the opportunity to travel even on every weekend within the UK, and then the 2 months after were really special and meaningful. And you met my wife Tracy. And she and I actually met as participants in England, and we did not know each other from university in New York when we met.
Okay.
So Keith, before we get into the serious stuff, you are a very busy man, but you surely have some free time off. So what do you do here in New York when you have some of the free time that you surely deserve?
Well, thanks very much. I'm a runner, not a great one, but I'm a runner.
It's very authentic.
And I've actually run in the world's biggest race with the most amount of participants, which is a 5K in Frankfurt, Germany, and there was about 80,000 participants. They start on 3 different avenues and end up in their giant park in Frankfurt. And I did that with the Henry Schein team when I was over there at one time.
Wow.
And I'm also a marathon runner, and what's interesting, there are 6 of the world's major marathons, and In a few months, I'll have my number 5 done, and then my last marathon to do all 6 of the world majors will be Berlin.
Oh.
And Berlin is famous because it's the record for the fastest marathon time.
Right, it's a very fast track, yeah.
They say German engineering is so good that also means the asphalt and the streets are kind on runners' knees.
Yeah.
And the Berlin Marathon, it has a lot of straightaways.
Yeah.
And I've been in Berlin many times, and I've run through the Tiergarten, and it's just a beautiful place to run.
So since you've told us that you're a marathon runner, now you have to post your time too. So what has been your best time in a marathon?
I do a lot of marathons. I don't do them quickly, so 4:15.
4:15. Okay, very nice. I couldn't run a marathon. I die because I'm a heavy guy. I do some weightlifting, so I'm not a good runner. But everybody does what he kind of wants to do and what he feels comfortable with. And probably it's the same in the professional field. So you said that you feel very comfortable with helping dentists, practitioners, doing the right, taking the right choices, acquiring businesses, managing of their business, and at the end of the whole process, getting rid of the business to get the best price. So let's start to dive into the topic. So what do you think are the differences between the US market, or maybe you give us an insight of the US market? What's the typical process when you are done with your studies and you want to acquire a business? So what's the typical way of a dentist to acquire a business, or how many people do acquire a business or work as a dentist in an office as an employee?
Sure. I'll start with actually what's more similar in a lot of the countries, that a dental practice is often an ongoing business with active patients.
Yep.
And that's what the value is when somebody is looking to acquire a practice. Will those patients stay with the new doctor? Mm-hmm. If a transition is handled professionally and the patients are treated with respect and dignity, they will try the new dentist. They will try the new practice owners. And banks, we find banks in pretty much every country love lending to dentists. Those loans perform well.
Yeah.
Very, very, very little risk, very low default rate. I mean, would you rather lend money to a dentist or to a restaurant? You know, restaurants are hard businesses.
Yeah.
They don't all make it, but dentists do okay.
Yeah, they do very well, because I think in Germany it's seldom heard of a dentist who really goes into out of business. So you have to do a lot of stuff really wrong to go out of business, and that's what banks really love.
Right, because in the U.S. the default rate for people not paying their loans on dental practices is the smallest of any measurable business.
Wow. Okay. So interest rates are also low, because if low risk, the interest rates are low. So for dentists, it's a good thing. And what would you say? You know many markets. You said you acquire and sell and in 7 countries. What countries are these? And what do you think are the baselines that are the same in every country? And what do you say are the differences of the countries?
Sure. So right now we're the largest broker of dental practices in the U.S., Canada, England, and we're to smaller degrees in Ireland, in Spain, in Italy, and Germany. Mm-hmm. That it's really our goal as a value-added service to help practitioners with their professional goals. So, again, whether it's the dentistry is changing, obviously, on your podcasts and, videos, you show it. We're in the digital age, high tech, artificial intelligence is coming more into mainstream. A lot
of disruption going on
right now. A lot of disruption. And the same thing, it's not only a older dentist retiring that a straight out of dental school associate is acquiring the practice.
Yeah.
There are the dental entrepreneurs. People, and we see this in all the countries, that people that want to acquire 8 to 12 practices, so the founder actually stops doing clinical work and then really is running the businesses.
Yeah.
You have groups, DSOs, emerging in all the countries as well, and they obviously see dentistry as a way to invest in a good business, but also helping people, expanding access to care. And that's why the groups are adding locations to their footprint, or, in the United States there's 50 states, and a lot of groups are expanding, from one cluster to another area.
Mm-hmm.
And we will partner and help them as well.
Very, very interesting. So Christian, what we see in Germany is that the groups, the DSO business is still pretty small. The biggest DSOs in Germany only have 100 offices. Here in the US, it's totally different, right?
It's over 1,000.
Over 1,000. It's Aspen Dental, I think, is the biggest.
It's not Aspen. I think they're number 2 or 3, but Heartland is, I believe. Somebody will check the facts, but I believe it's Heartland.
Yeah, it probably depends on the measurement, right? How many offices or revenue.
Well, right.
You can take different KPIs to
yeah.
Right.
So do you see a big change in rolled over the praxis in the last 10 years? So when you have a 65-year-old dentist in like 2010, in order or in comparison to 2020 or 2022, do you see difference?
So, of course, the fundamental rule is always supply and demand. In a geographic region, there are rural areas of the U.S. that you can have a single practitioner grossing $1 million. Now it's pretty much €1 million at parity, but highly profitable. But yet there's a challenge of finding multiple buyers, or buyers that want to go to rural areas. Even though their costs of living are lower, their profitability is higher, their work-life balance is strong, patients have a trusting relationship with their doctor. But this is everywhere, that there are rural practices that don't see the same quantity of buyers as urban areas. In New York City, or Frankfurt, or Munich, there's plenty of buyers for multiple. When we have practices in Boston, San Diego, Washington D.C., Toronto, near London, that you're going to have, prices being bid up over asking price.
Yeah. Okay. Totally got that. So you have the big difference in between the big hotspots and the landscape. So when you go to the landscape, like in Germany, when you go into the Mecklenburg area or into the Lower Saxony area, where you're far away from big cities, it became tough in Germany. Is it the same in the United States when you go into the landscape, that you have problems finding or finding buyers who pay what you ask for?
Sure, there is, but practitioners can do things to set themselves up for a successful outcome.
Yeah.
If they're not fully digital now, have a plan, have a roadmap to go digital, and to increase your value, to make your practice more attractive, because a lot of the groups candidly would like to see minimum 4 treatment rooms, 2 dentists. Think of it from their shoes. There's less risk for them in acquiring. Yeah. So if you're a practitioner only working out of 2 chairs, you might want to look to expand. People don't like the expense of moving, but that might be your best solution, especially if you have a few years timeline, so you can expand to be more attractive and to keep your options open for what you want to do when it's your time to retire.
I think it's really interesting, because I always say, when you've got a really small business, like you say 2 to 3 treatment rooms, you basically sell a job. But if you are bigger, you're selling a company. Maybe a small company, but it kind of has a real value proposition for someone acquiring it, because if someone has to do 100% of the work on their own to keep up what's being basically made in revenue in this office, it's not as attractive as if you get something on top of this, because maybe you have got 2 or 3 or 4 dentists working in the office and generating that revenue for you. So and the other thing is, if the dental office is really good, but the owner is the only one who's working it, some of the younger dentists fear overtaking it because they fear that they cannot live up to the expectations, because they start with less experience and less expertise, basically.
So what you're also saying is something that's very, in this business of brokerage, it's so important that you do a professional job, that you respect confidentiality. If the dentist is ready to sell, they really need to know that we're going to handle things professionally, that we're going to handle things that, that treats the staff with dignity and respect, because they're very valuable.
Yes.
They're a huge asset in what they're selling, because a dental team that works well together, that's promoting optimal treatment acceptance, that's where the magic happens.
Yeah.
And expanding, options for patients, whether it's elective cosmetic work. And, once you have a larger practice and you have a bit of a multi-specialty and you're keeping everything kind of in-house without referring out and referring your
everything under one roof, basically.
Everything under one roof, and the profits will stay under your roof.
Yeah, the value chain is being kept in-house. That's super valuable, because you don't lose all those. You don't have that much friction. The friction is eliminated, because once you have someone on the outside, a laboratory or maybe a surgeon that you send the patients to, it's always friction, because there is one more man in the middle, basically.
Right. But today, and this is a global challenge, nothing to do with the US or Germany, there's a lot of staffing challenges. Mm-hmm. Are dentists able to retain associates or retain their therapists or hygienists? And it's really important that the practice owner value their workers, appreciate them, constantly work on showing their appreciation, because there's a saying in any business that your patients will never be as your employees, unless they're happy, no one's going to be happy. And you really need to prioritize that, because they're interacting with patients directly all the time, and you really need that.
Do you see a difference in the labor shortage in order to the 7 or 8 countries where you as a manager working in? So is there a difference between Canada, Ireland, US?
There's a lot of similarities. In the UK, they're having challenges. I mean, we're still having challenges. Hopefully COVID is under control and parents will be able to send their children to school and their school not be virtual, and their routines can be normalized. That really needs to happen for the workforce to get better. And I hope and I think we are trending in the right direction.
So do you see, like in the United States, is there, like in New York or in the Boston area, is there a good approach for a dentist to find people for his office? Or in Germany, the last couple of years, the salaries went up straight, and it's very, very tough to find new associates. So they check out to find associates in credit institutes or in the hotel.
Sure. Oh yeah, that's what you're saying. Yeah,
so yes, because of inflation, because of the competitive landscape, salaries have been going up for associates, for the office staff, and again, when you're in a competitive situation, if you're running a good practice and treating people with respect, just like you get reviews from patients, how you treat your staff will make it easier to obtain other staff or not.
Yeah.
So the decision is the dentist that dentists do great jobs clinically, working on their continuing education, being up on the latest technology, but they also need to focus on their skills of running a practice, of treating people well, and that includes their staff.
Do you also think, because I'm pondering on the importance of employer branding, on the recruiting process, on the onboarding process, and after that you have a really good corporate manual that you basically standardize all the procedures in the office so people have orientation. So do you think that more resources have to be allocated to this process, from basically communicating with your staff to find people who are like you, and then when you have someone applying to you, that you basically do everything to bring those people into your culture?
Right. So, having a system in place is great. Not every dentist has an employee handbook, or have any systems, especially the smaller practices.
Yeah.
And the opposite of being systematic is chaos.
Right.
And who wants to work in a chaotic environment where everything's on a fly versus having the playbook, knowing what to do, having those morning huddles as a team, continuously working on team harmony?
Yes.
It's not a do this in the part of the orientation of a new employee. It's dedicated to constantly working on team harmony.
Yeah.
It's a constant process.
Right, it's and values and purpose and all that. People want to know the why. Why do they get to work? That's what I think. And I think it's still not common in dental practices to have these things. They are just not they're just not done, because the owners focus on their treatment and they think that's enough. But I think in the future it will not be enough.
Right, of course, because you're treating people. You're not just treating a tooth.
Right.
You're treating people, and especially now that pretty much every country, we all get that the oral health and total health correlation, and you can't have total health without proper oral health. And that gives people more of a meaning and satisfaction that they're really working on the total person and improving their total health. And cosmetic dentists are giving people self-esteem.
Exactly. People have to know what's behind the treatment. We're not just fixing teeth. We are creating smiles, we're creating moments and all that. And I think that most doctors know this internally, but they have to communicate it much better to their employees so they know that they're doing something of importance.
One of the most fun things and great things that we do in the United States, Henry Schein, we get behind a program called Give Kids a Smile, where it's a national day of providing treatment, free treatment to underserved populations.
Yeah.
We do it in convenient locations all across the US, and you're giving kids a smile, you're giving them self-esteem. They're not missing days off from school because they have a toothache that is totally preventable.
Right, right.
And this is, it's so many thousands of offices, the doctors and their staff volunteer. And things like this happen in every country. Where, Henry Schein, we back our mission of mercy of providing treatment in more rural areas, very underserved areas. At Temple University in Philadelphia, they had a mission of mercy to provide free dental care, no questions asked, to urban people of Philadelphia that don't have a dental practice they call their own.
Yeah, that's very inspiring.
So Keith, I want to get a step back to the labor topic again. So do you see a trend where you try to immigrate people out of other countries to out of Mexico?
Right, so we're working on a program in Spain for Spanish dentists, pretty much straight out of dental school, to have a 1 to 2 year apprenticeship program in England, where they can be licensed as an apprentice under a supervising dentist to work there. So we're really excited about that.
Okay, I think this is even great for the dentists, and a lot of young founders, young dentists who want to establish their own practice ask me and asked my team members for a special this topic, where to work for like 1 or 2 or 3 years in another country to learn other dental practices. And it's very, very tough to, first of all, get access to other universities. It's actually a big business in Germany. You pay up to like 35,000 euros to get even the connect to a university, and it's very tough to find like a 1 year or 2 year opportunity to work in like New York or in other countries. But in order to the, I talk about this, in order to the staff, do you think will it be a kind of possibility for like the US practices to find a staff in like Mexico or South America or Asia or Europe to work in their practices?
Yeah, licensing everywhere is a very complicated issue. You know, it's just very, very complicated. So it will take a lot of people to do that, because wherever there's supply and demand inequities, if you bring in a supply from another country, what are you doing to the oral health, needs of that country?
Yeah, so the resources are just shifted, basically.
It's complicated, but it's interesting what you say, though. There's so much excitement in dentistry, so much for young people to learn in dental school. Genetics, gene therapy, so many clinical needs that didn't exist. Digital workflow. They're teaching students finally, comprehensive digital workflow, which is great. But they don't have time to say to dental students, let's give you a small 6-month MBA, or you're going to be a small business owner, you're going to employ 20 people.
Right.
This is what you need to know about marketing, human resources.
Totally.
They just don't have time because there's so much clinical demands of dental school. And that's why, young people should look for mentors, either successful dentists or, to build out their network. Even in dental school, they should start thinking about building out a network of advisors and trusted people.
A mentor, basically.
Yeah, a mentor to help them, because the previous generation, they've done pretty well. They've reaped the rewards. There's obviously a trend, a heck of a lot less extractions and more saving the tooth. And now we've created demand as the populations in Europe and the US, Canada populations are getting older, but these are now more older people who have more retained teeth than the generation before them. Yeah. So there's going to be a lot of work for dentists going forward.
Yeah, it's very interesting, because I kept saying this in some of my videos, that you should get a mentor really, really early, because once you are in that really big wheel going on, you will not have time for it. You don't get out of that wheel anymore, because you have your own business. You won't go 3 months to New York and watch someone doing excellent dentistry and excellent entrepreneurship. So what I think is that those people need to be not so really is the wrong impatient. They don't need to be so impatient, because we're going to live to 100. So people are going to work longer. So you spend those 2 to 3 years between 25 and 30 educating yourself, getting better, prepare yourself for being a really good entrepreneur, a really good communicator. And I think this is going to be a really big market. And there's also probably, and this is what I want to ask you, do you think that the really big units, the really big offices are going to have people from different fields managing those big units, because the dentist says, okay, I'm going to bring it to some degree, maybe 20, 30, 40 employees, but after that, if we get bigger, I'm going to have someone managing finance, managing marketing and all that.
Right, there is that, it's not one specific number, but there is, a transition or a transformational change when somebody hits those 8 to 10 practices. Are they bringing in a CFO instead of having a bookkeeper? Somebody with more business acumen. Are they looking at acquiring practices? Of course, you must have a cultural fit on what you're acquiring, but is the cash flow sufficient? Will a bank lend to you because they look at the active patient count? And they say, yes, this business should perform well.
Yeah, so 8 to 10 units. What would you say would be the average unit size in that thing? Like 20 employees, 50 employees. So how much is the total cluster of people working in such a business that you just pointed out?
You know, it varies place to place. Like in Manhattan, sure, you have some very big offices, but real estate's expensive.
Yeah.
So to have, 30 operatories, that's a real, big operation, and not that many people are ready to run those kind of things. I mean, there are experienced leadership that is out there that's doing a great job in making changes in the dental industry. So it depends where you're at, rural, urban, opportunities. Most groups do not want to own real estate, versus a lot of sole practitioners have said, hey, owning real estate has actually been a good investment over my career.
Yeah.
But the new owners may not want to own that real estate. They'd rather use their money to invest and acquire other profitable dental practices.
Right, because it's faster. I mean, if you build on your own, that's what I experience now in Germany.
But in Germany, there are, though, when Germany has a higher percentage of startups than, let's say, the United States. And the reason is because you can start up a practice in a lot of places and have sufficient patient flow right away.
So what's the average amount of money a dentist spends on an office, let's say in a bigger city in the US versus maybe Europe, Germany, UK? Is it different, or is it the same, or what's your experience?
Technology is a wonderful thing, but it's not cheap. But fortunately, there is access to capital. So it's all about what are the monthly payments compared to the benefit? So you can go full digital, full CAD/CAM, full scanning, full interacting with a digital lab. And you should have the patient flow to make that work.
Okay, so you'd probably recommend to someone who's starting to invest in this infrastructure right away, instead of like basically saving money in the beginning, and maybe say, okay, then I'm gonna upgrade later. You'd say invest that money at the start to have a good workflow, to have more upside for your business.
So years ago, they used to say, back in the day when there were dark rooms in film, I don't know if you remember that from dental school, but you could have an extra room for emergency patients, that if you're booked and what do you do when one of your patients, your steady patients, calls and they chipped a tooth or something more serious and they need to see you now? By having a extra room, you can see emergency patients without turning them away, because when you have a true emergency and you need care, you have to get it from somebody. And you can't say, I'm sorry, I'm booked out for the next 2 weeks, we'll get you in eventually. So in the beginning, by having an extra empty room, or in the very beginning, having a room that you may not have even plumbed and equipped, that's okay to maybe a few months in, see how busy you are and how booked up you are, to then equip that room later once you have more patients.
Yeah. Okay.
So, Keith, I want to step into the topic, what you're doing with Schein here in the United States. So, what is the process when a practice owner comes to you guys and say, okay, I want to sell my practice? What are you talk in the beginning of the interview, the trust is very important, but what are the exact steps do you follow up on?
So we, on my team, we have what we call certified valuation analysts. We have quite a few of them, and we start with the valuation of the dental practice. And we'll take, of course, the few years financials, the tax returns, and our other questions about the active patient count. And depending where you're at, the practice, the value of the practice, a large component of it is goodwill. It's it's the price of your active patients. and we'll come up with that valuation, and we do these on small practices, maybe a few $100,000, and up to 50 million. But what's very different in the US and Germany are the privacy laws. For instance, a small practitioner in the US has no problem doing a patient record sale, that they could take their patients, and there's even a few ways of doing that. Either the buyer could pay over the next few years based on production, what they're getting from that patient, or based on a dollar amount per active record. But in Germany, I believe, because you have privacy, you really need the patient's consent to move their record, and for another dentist.
Yeah, it's got to be totally anonymous. It's just to be basically a P&L. So
it's different. It's different, but that's okay. It's just different. And fortunately, we have a great track record in all the countries that we serve of the banks looking at our evaluations and saying, yes, that we will support the buyer, getting a loan for 500,000 euro, a million, whatever the amount is, 2 million, based on this valuation.
Yeah.
Okay.
So do you see a shift in that business that even private young dentists can raise a capital from 2 to 5 million from the banks? And the second question to it is, what is the current, just for comparison cases, what's the current interest rate do you have to pay in the United States approximately?
I mean, the interest rate is going to vary depending on your needs. If you need a single piece of equipment, you could still get that in the 4% range in the US. If you need the money for 7 years or 10 years to acquire a practice, you're going to pay a little more than that.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Okay.
Oh, that's
high.
So
it is, but it's all about the cash flow, and will the financials support the debt payment? And also in the United States, student debt loads are a lot higher than Europe.
Yeah.
Like 10 times as much.
Yeah.
So do you think that do you see private dentists who will establish their business that they pay $2 to $5 million for a practice?
So with a track record?
With a track record, yes. That's the key thing. If you're 26 years old and fresh out of dental school, maybe not. Okay. But if you have a clean credit, and that's why, again, they just don't have enough time in dental school to teach people how to protect their credit, and to don't strike out before you get up to bat. Don't jeopardize your ability because you did things, a little reckless. Not just because you get that fresh DDS degree, you shouldn't be driving a 7 Series BMW. Maybe a 3 Series, and then work your way up.
Exactly. You can drive it later. It's all about postponing your rewards, basically, right?
Yeah, but then again, if you have $80,000 debt on that new 7 Series Beamer,
right? The bank will
plus $300,000 from your education. The bank may not want to lend a few $1 million to you. But if you're more responsible and your credit is good, and this is in any country, the bank will look at it and say, hey, dentistry pays, these practices do well. We have a portfolio. Banker says we've got a portfolio of loans that are doing well. We're in the business to lend money. That's how we make money. And they'll hopefully get to yes. And of course, you need a plan to be thought out. And that's also why it's important to get mentors and advisors during your dental school days, and to volunteer and to get exposure with the professional community is a good thing.
Okay. So Keith, before we come to an end to this very interesting talk, we started up in Battery Park talking about the Battery Park, and I want to end, we want to end talking about a thing here in New York. And what do you think, is there or what kind of German history is in New York City? Are you aware of, or is this a shocking question?
No. So I know later you guys are going to the U.S. Open, watch some tennis. And it mentioned there's 22 Germans, good.
Very well informed. Yesterday,
crop.
100% went out of the tournament.
But here's
Thanks for mentioning it.
now here's one of the most beautiful German-American success stories in the world. What's the best piano in the entire world?
The Steinbach?
Steinway.
Steinway, yes.
Steinway. So it's called Henry Steinway is his Americanized, anglicized name. In the 1850s, he came over to America from Hamburg, and in Queens, about 3 miles from the tennis center, is Astoria, Queens, where they still manufacture Steinway pianos, the best in the world. They only make pianos in 2 places, in Hamburg and in Queens, New York. So how cool is that?
Oh, this
But-
is very awesome.
You know, when you were in New York, you and I, we had dinner together on the Upper East Side in Yorkville. Yorkville used to be called Germantown. And there are still restaurants there that have been making their own sausage since the 1930s. So you can get, bratwurst and, homemade pretzels also. We do have a Hofbrauhaus in New York. I've been to the giant Hofbrauhaus tent in Munich for Oktoberfest, which was not a good idea to try to run the morning after going to Oktoberfest.
Was it not your best time, probably?
No, with a big headache. No.
So, as you mentioned, Germantown. So, when did they rename it to Yorkville?
Probably in the late 40s, in the 40s,
yeah.
because of the
Yeah.
war. But
Bad marketing.
yeah. But if you look at, here we are in Battery Park. There's a rumor that one of his homes, I don't know how much he's here, Leonardo DiCaprio has a home here in Battery Park, and his mother is German. She's from a town near Dortmund.
Yeah.
So German-American success story again.
And German-American relationship from the Konrad Adenauer House. It was a present
Yes.
to you a couple of years ago. When did you receive the?
A few years ago, I've been in Germany with the Adenauer Institute for meetings, and in other countries as well, and they do really great things.
Yeah. Okay, so Keith, thanks so much for your time, for your appreciation of our German-American friendship, of knowing you, of having a great time the last couple of years, and seeing you again after 3 years. We haven't seen us
That's
due
right.
to COVID. And I hope you have a great day, great week, and
At the end, let me mention, if you guys on the other side of the camera have questions about the topics we talked about today, just write them in the comments. If you hear this via podcast, you can write an email. If you see this on YouTube, just write a comment. And Keith, thank you so much for your valuable time. It was really interesting interview, and I think people in Germany are really grateful for the insights of the US and other markets. And we hope we're going to see you the next time we are in New York.
Please do. Dankeschön.
Sehr gerne.
Dankeschön.
Thank you. Goodbye.